She is live in studio with us, sharing the biggest impacts on Texas and Houston as a whole.
All right, let's talk about it, Jade.
Yeah, that shutdown means that thousands of federal workers in Texas will head to work without the promise of a paycheck. This is until lawmakers in Congress can reach a funding deal. This includes the husband of one Houston woman who's now facing a familiar struggle. Texas is home to more than 130,000 federal civilian employees who could be impacted by the government shutdown. When it comes to NASA, 15 of their 18,000 employees are being furloughed without pay, including workers at the Johnson Space Center. Some other agencies impacted by the shutdown include military pay for service members, EPA inspections, the Health and Human Services programs as well. Agencies that will remain open during the shutdown include border protection, law enforcement, air traffic control, and Medicare and Medicaid. Now, Ashley Totten's husband works for the U.S. Coast Guard and is considered one of those essential workers. During a previous shutdown, she said that they were left without income for weeks.
The first time was pretty rough. I think it was 34 days for that shutdown with a couple of missed paychecks. And yes, we did get like a back pay situation, but at that time I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 little boys, one of which was very sick. Figuring things out, okay, now we need to call the mortgage company because, hey, we don't have that money, we're not sure when we're gonna get it.
The last government shutdown was a partial stoppage back in 2018 that lasted for 35 days. So far now, it's unclear how long this current government shutdown will last. Delon.
Okay, Professor Dietrich von Biedenfeld with the University of Houston Downtown is here with us this morning.
Welcome. Thanks for coming in. I know we have some viewers who are very talkative about this, so we'll try to get to those comments as well. But let's just talk about what's going on right now. So the last time we saw this about 7 years ago. Now that lasted, what was it, 35 days?
The longest one.
What is your thought on this? Is there any way to say this early on if it could possibly last that long, or are we looking better off this time around?
Well, actually, I think we're looking worse as far as a resolution because there are a lot of benefits for the president to continue the shutdown, particularly in the idea of using reductions in force protections and provisions to actually terminate staff and permanently remove them. So the famous line, "You're fired," taking this furlough into the next level and saying, hey, if Social Security can survive with 12% fewer staff, why bring them back? If we can remove 90% of the SEC for a while, why do we need all this protection for investors? Investors are savvy people in their own right, so we don't really need these protections. So a lot of these justifications put things in the president's favor. Concurrently, back in the 35-day shutdown, we had very tangible border wall concerns. We've had previous Affordable Care Act concerns that persist in this shutdown as well, but it's a lot more amorphous about which constituencies benefit. And the media doesn't really know where to go as clearly as it has before. The polarization is really diffuse. So the president has a lot of the cards this time, and that makes it more challenging, even if Congress is able to reach a compromise, for them to move something past the president's desk.
So it sounds in many ways, if this continues to go on, this in a sense, and I've heard people call it this Doge 2.0, where a lot of people, a reduction in force ultimately, like you're referencing.
Absolutely. And that's really what we see the strength of the negotiating position, where we may see Congress fold and say, what are you willing to sign, Mr. President? We're not going to be able to find a supermajority to overrule that veto power. So where would you like to see it? Would you like to see more FDA cuts? Would you like to see more Department of Ag cuts? With this WIC and SNAP consideration, are there families that, you know, we have this diverse viewpoint on what these benefits are and who are the recipients? Who are the rightful recipients of these federal tax dollars?
Well, we asked our viewers about their biggest concerns, so let's take a look and see what people are saying about this, because it's always interesting to get your take at home. And so here we go. Nell saying the impact on low-income families, that's certainly a big concern from Texas City. Also, Crystal from Katy, my daughter is military and won't be getting paid while the government is shut down. So, you know, a lot of people are concerned about that. Also, Caleb from Cyprus, a Democratic agenda trying to be forced into passage relating to unnecessary funding on multiple issues.
Let's start with actually how this would impact lower income Americans and what we're looking at from here.
Absolutely. And we know we have multiple supplemental nutritional assistance programs. Those have certain funding that will continue for a while, but it's much more limited than certain other areas of the government. And so when those benefits run out, if they're not reauthorized, those individuals could see an inability to purchase food. One of the areas where the Democratic leadership is pushing hard with regard to health care provisions and expansions or retention of certain people on the rolls and access to healthcare where it could become problematic is that November 1st re-enrollment period, right, where we say, okay, ACA is coming back up again. We really want to be able to have families that are able to access healthcare, right, because these things cause long-term challenges where that little cold becomes pneumonia, or where, again, that missed payment for the layaway item becomes an interest fee or a credit card collection payment.
How about the families that are worried about military pay?
Absolutely. And the military is, of course, going to be emergency essential, depending on what benefits you're getting. So the DOD and Department of Veterans Affairs are separate, and so those pension checks and other areas that are for VA benefits and Social Security recipients aren't going to be affected immediately. But for those military individuals, they may see challenges in moving. So those move authorizations and the funding and reimbursement for housing. They may see reduced payments. And additionally, many military families at the junior grades rely on some of these supplemental nutritional assistance programs to offset low pay for privates or corporals in many of these branches of service. So that's another challenge where these individuals, base housing, it may not be an option. So they're paying for apartments. Then their landlord is saying, where's my money?
Real quick here too, I know I've been hearing from realtors and people who are actually buying homes right now, if you're getting an FHA loan, for example, that could be impacted because it's federally backed. So although you may get your funding eventually, they still have to sign off on it, and there's no one in office to sign off. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you may be waiting on approvals, or you may be waiting on that money to come through. So it presents a lot of lag time, and then there's the catch-up work, right? Those 12 emails become 100 emails, and when that person comes back in the office, they only have the 8 hours in the day to get that done.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens next.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dietrich, we always appreciate you, and I'm sure we'll be having you in quite often as hopefully we'll see how long this lasts. Hopefully not too long, but we'll be seeing you, I'm sure.
Thanks
Absolutely.
for your expertise.